Honestly, my favourite detail about this concert was the programme. If you notice, it's backwards. Just like a manga. And if you go to the back page, they've taken the back page of the manga where it's like, you're reading it the wrong way for the silly Western people who don't know that this is not how you read a manga. Which I thought this was really fun. A really fun detail. Whoever thought of this, you're an absolute genius. We've seen a sudden rise in Japanese animes starting to make their way over onto British stages. And it's really being proved how much of an appetite there is for it. My Neighbor Totoro is selling amazingly well, and we're even starting to see productions being done in Japanese as well, with the upcoming Spirited Away production. And honestly, it's so nice to see. It's so nice to see all of these doing really well, and Death Note is no exception. Death Note is the first musical to come over. So, has it been successful? Has it managed to condense the anime into 2 hours 20? Let's find out. But, if you haven't been faced before, hi, I'm Ellie, I talk about theatre. I do reviews, I do discussions, I do video essays, and if any of that sounds interesting to you, please consider hitting like and subscribe, it really helps me out, it helps out the channel. But, let's dive into Death Note, the musical where you write down someone's name and they go pfft. The Death Note musical is based off the manga of the same name, and it follows Light, who is obsessed with justice, and he takes matters into his own hands when he finds the Death Note. A notebook where if you write someone's name down, they will die within 40 seconds. He uses this to start killing off criminals, but he is quickly discovered by the detective L, who is determined to put a stop to his killing spree. There are a lot of questions raised by this musical that are really interesting. It tackles a lot between the good and the bad, the moral justifications of what Light is doing, and I feel like it's explored quite well. I will say that you can very much tell that this is squashed. I think that it is one of the musical's biggest detractors, is that its pace is so fast. Like, often you don't really get to spend the time really dwelling into the morals or the implications of what Light is doing. There is a lot of really interesting moments that I watched, and as someone who hasn't seen the anime, I'm watching it and going, wow, this seems like it would be really well explored in the anime, where they actually have the time to flesh this out. Hi, Editing Ellie here. I wanted to add a little bit more to this because I think there's a really key example that really highlights this issue in the musical, but it's a little bit spoilery. There is a moment in the musical where, to get rid of every single FBI agent that's looking for him, Light goes up to one of the agents, makes him take a piece of the Death Note pages and write down every single name of the FBI agents that are looking for him. And then, as he's doing this, he tells him that he has already written this happening into the Death Note and that he is going to die. This agent is going to step in front of the train and die after he's done this. This moment is so dark. It is a very tragic moment for this officer, and it feels like this is a really big turning point within the character of Light, as you really start to realise what he's doing and what he's capable of. But because the musical doesn't have the time to explore this, and it doesn't have the time to explore this turn in Light's character, we lose out on a lot of the impact that this moment could have. So, this is an example, just a really quick example of what I'm talking about here. Anyway, thank you, bye-bye, go back to me! Where's me? It's weird because this musical's runtime is only about 2 hours if you forget about the interval, where it really does feel like it could have used a little bit more time. Specifically, I said it needed about 10-15 more minutes. 10-15 more minutes throughout the runtime to just give a little bit more focus onto these themes, a little bit more focus onto the moral implications, a little bit more focus on these questions that are really, really interesting and really complex that the musical could dive into. And I feel like it just misses out just ever so slightly because it's having to rush itself so quickly. I think this is really evident within the start of the musical. We get one song before Light finds the Death Note to get to know him as a character. And because of that, we never really get to know who he is before the Death Note, which I feel is something very interesting and very important to explore. You've got to know who this person is before he gets this power, before he comes into contact with this, so we can see how it changes him and how this power, destroys him, I guess. We see a little bit of this explored through his sister, and how his sister is like, oh, you've changed, you've become a different person. But the musical only tells us that he's changed. The musical is telling us that he used to have a different moral code. But we don't get to see this. It doesn't show us who Light is before this. We're just told who he is. I think these themes are explored well enough in the musical, but it definitely feels like there is so much room for them to dive in a little bit more. And I am 100% sure that this is what the anime and the manga managed to do with the longer runtime. I mean, I've just mentioned her, but the sister gets 2 scenes in the musical. She feels very unneeded. She is pretty much there just to introduce Light to the music of Misa, and that's it. Misa is presented as a big enough star in the musical that you could pretty much just cut the sister and have Light just already be a fan of Misa. Or not even that, just be aware of her existence. That's all you really need Light to have. If you add 10 more minutes, cut the sister, you've got enough time to explore these themes, explore Light a little bit more, explore who he is and how he's kind of come into this mindset, so that we can see that proper contrast between him before and him after. I think the musical really excels at building the relationship and the rivalry between Light and L. Their dynamic together is amazing. It's so fun to watch. They're constantly at each other's throats. They're constantly trying each other and pushing each other in so many complex ways. It's really well explored, and I think that this is the musical's strength. I think what does suffer, though, and from watching clips from the anime, because I really wanted to make sure, and this was one of the things that I wanted to explore in the anime and talk to my friends about, was the character of Misa. Misa is very one-dimensional in the musical. She is extremely one-dimensional. Her entire character trait is Light. Her obsession with Light. And because the musical doesn't have time to explore the toxicity of the relationship, because the musical doesn't have time to explore how Light is manipulating her, we don't get the different layers between the two characters, and it ends up with Misa feeling very weak as a character. We don't really have time to get into her intentions properly. We don't really have time to get to know her as a person beyond her obsession with Light. It seems like, from what the musical presents us, that is all there is to her. When she is literally a famous pop star, there is so much to explore there. There is so much about her that you could talk about. Her life could be so interesting, but the musical doesn't have time to explore that. I will say, despite a lot of my criticisms, the story does manage to flow, even if I do feel like there are so many moments where it could put a little bit more focus to just build it up even more. What is really strong about this musical, and what I undoubtedly love, is the music. This score has a great 90s rock pop vibe to it that really works with the style of Death Note. I think it complements the show incredibly well, and there are some absolute bangers here. My favourite song is Hurricane. This is a solo for Light when he's first got the notebook and he's first kind of exploring what it can do and the newfound power that he has. That really explores it well. I think this is a very powerful song and a great kind of turning point for Light's character. I also really like I'm Ready, our first introduction to Misa, which is done in a very concert-style pop band number with backup dancers, and it's so flashy and fun, and it comes at a perfect point in the musical where you're like, yeah, I'm ready for this. Yeah, let's go into this big flashy dance number, very J-pop style. Yeah, I was down for it, and it's performed incredibly well by Jessica Lee. I also really enjoyed the number when Light and Elle are playing tennis with each other, where they're trying to one-up each other, and it's very, like, showmanship, and yeah, it's very showmanship. But I think that number really dives into their rivalry, their conflicts, their different perspectives on things, and how both of them just have this massive ego that neither of them can kind of check. I really love the number for the Shinigami at the start of Act 1. They're in a human as well. It's this really twisted song, and it's fun. I like it. I feel like this score is really, really good, and probably my favourite thing about this musical. And honestly, that's a really positive thing. The score is always going to be the most important thing, and Death Note has some really, really great material here. Now, staging. Have we forgotten what the word concert means? Like, I swear that every single time I go to one of these concerts, I feel like I'm being lied to. And look, when you did it for Bonnie and Clyde, I was like, oh, it's cute. You know, you're transferring, so you're doing a proper staging for it, and it's like a hint of what you're gonna do when you go to the arts. That's cute. And then we keep on doing it. This isn't a concert. You don't have to call this a concert, okay? It's a semi-staged production. It's a very weird trend that we're seeing, that just every single concert is just not a concert anymore. Despite this, I do really like the staging, and you can tell exactly how this is going to play and how it's going to be in a fully staged production. There's some absolutely fantastic choreo, there's some really nice levels that they get within the set. It's really nice. I think the throne at the back is used for some great effect. They've got all the really important areas on stage. As a semi-staged production goes, this is a great one. I think what is most concert-like about this is its lighting. They have a lot of lights that like shine out into the audience, kind of crossing over each other, which creates this really nice effect and feels very concerty. And especially when it's like lit up with like red and like swimming the audience in this red light, it's very effective. And it's most effective during the song I'm Ready, where we actually are in a concert. It's a concert within not a concert, because it's not a concert. This is a semi-staged production. I think the design of the set is great. It's really interesting with all of its layers, its staircases. You get the Japanese vibe from the buildings in the back. It's nice, it's simple, it's effective, it's great. Honestly, one of my favourite touches of this set is actually the back wall, where you have like the writing of the Death Note on the back and the laughter, and it's very stylized, it's perfectly done. It's a little simple detail that really brings out the kind of manga vibe, and it's very good. Now, let's talk about this cast. I'm just going to note quickly, in case you guys don't know, this production has had 2 concert runs, basically. It's had a couple of days at the London Palladium, which happened last month, and now it's getting 4 days at the Lyric Theatre. I saw it at the Lyric, and so a couple of the cast members are different from the Palladium version. Namely, Adam Pascal and Frances Maylin McCann did not come over and do the production at the Lyric. Joaquim Pedro Valdez is light, and I feel like he really explores this character well. Obviously, I feel like the script could give him a little bit more to help him out, but he does a great job. He has this sinister edge about him, and he does a good job at taking you on this journey of the character, taking you along for the ride, taking you along as he starts to become more and more evil and corrupted by this Death Note. He's a really interesting character, very complex, and it deals with a lot of the themes incredibly well as Valdez just having a beautiful voice. His performance of Hurricane, magnificent. Elle is a very fun character. I really became attached to Elle. Honestly, I wanted Elle to win, and I don't know if this is the same in the anime, because he's just a weird little guy. He's just a weird little guy who likes eating sweets and solving crimes, you know? He's my silly little guy. Dean John Wilson just has this weird edge to him. He's like sitting on tables weirdly, and honestly, the way he plays it, I can't believe he manages to make it feel as natural as he does. Like his mannerisms, the way that he holds himself and sits and stands, these are things that could take this into the realm of like comedy a bit too much. But Wilson strikes this perfect balance between the weirdness of the character and like the differences between him and the rest of the task force, and the kind of strictness, the sternness of his character, the direct nature that makes him very intriguing to watch. As I said, Misa's character is defined by her crush. You know, it's very defined on that. And because of that, Misa doesn't really get to be explored very well. But I think what Jessica Lee's performance manages to do is give that charm to Misa. And her vocals, beautiful. George Maguire plays Rook, who, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, but I think I'm slightly wrong. Rook? It wasn't Ryuk, because I pronounced it as Ryuk before in like the Weekly News recaps, and that was wrong. It wasn't Ryuk, it was like Rook, because that's how they said it in the show. They didn't pronounce one of the letters, but am I pronouncing the right letter? Am I not pronouncing the right letter? I don't know anymore. Rook. I'm right, I think. I can't remember how I pronounced it, but I just pulled up the anime. I'm right. Rook. Rook is played by George Maguire, and honestly, my favourite character. He is wonderfully chaotic in this role. He is chewing that scenery. He is standing there, like, bird-style crouched and, like, perched on anything he can get his feet on, I guess. Not his hands on, but that's the normal phrase. I loved it. I loved how, like, over the top and, like, chaotic it was. I am an agent of chaos. I am the queen of chaos. The crown is on my head already. But you know what, George Maguire, you can be second, you know? It's the little touches. It's the voice, the kind of growl that is perfectly reminiscent of the anime version. It's the sinister nature, the little twitches that he does that are like a little bit inhuman, that like really sell it and sell his status as a Shinigami. It's great. It's stunning. It's beautiful. I loved it. George Maguire, what a performance. It's this weird blend of this sinister look and like the silliness and the comic relief of what he's doing. It strikes this really nice balance where you don't trust him, but you're also quite endeared towards him. I like it. Rem, played by Amy Atkinson. Look, it's Amy Atkinson. The voice, the vocals, I would have liked just a little bit more touch in even the mannerisms or the costuming to make her a little bit more inhuman. Rem has a nice relationship with Misa. Again, I wish that this was allowed to be explored a little bit more and given more time to really build up them together. But I definitely feel like it's within the songs and the emotion behind it that Atkinson really sells herself. I feel like Death Note is probably a very strong 4-star production. It has a lot going for it. It's got a lot of the things that made the anime work, a lot of the questions and the characters that, you know, people have grown attached to. It's got some great music, but I feel like it shoots itself in the foot a little bit by deciding to make itself 2 hours. It definitely had time to make itself a little bit longer so it could give itself the time to explore these themes and explore these characters and how they grow and how they're corrupted by the different presences of good and evil within this musical. There's so many great questions, and I think what this musical does successfully is it partners itself well to the anime. I don't feel like I've been spoiled for the anime by watching this. I feel like I could go away and watch the anime now and be really pleasantly surprised. It makes me want to go away and watch that. It makes me want to explore this different media. And I feel like that's really what you want from a musical adaptation, for it to complement the other. But what do you think? Are you a fan of Death Note anime? Are you a fan of the musical? Let me know all of your thoughts in the comments down below. If you did enjoy this video, please consider hitting like and subscribe. It really helps me, it helps out the channel. Here's some links to my videos on screen right now, and a link to my Instagram if you want to drop me a follow over there. But that's it for me today, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!